So I received a number of requests about my feeding schedule, how I feed my boas during the off season, during the breeding season, while the females are gestating. So I'm going to go over all that and how I feed my boas, approximately how much I feed my boas, and kind of an evolution of how I've done this over 40 years, more than 41, 42 years, counting the couple of years before I actually was successful producing any babies. But so I thought I'd go over all that and just babble away, and then we'll do some time-lapse video. I'm going to feed this whole aisle here, all these puppies, all the way up and down the aisle, and give you an idea what it's like, and then I'll tell you how much time transpired, including the time-lapse portion of it. And I'm also going to do a little bit of babbling in between when I see something interesting or whatever, so I got a microphone on. So hopefully that stays here, and the sound will be good, even if I'm just a little speck at the end of the screen way back yonder. I don't have somebody to follow me around with the camera, so we'll see how this works. So when I almost said it. I didn't say it. I resisted, Miriam. So first things first. So the first thing is hemostat. So this is a 2-foot long hemostat. It's the biggest one I know of. This enables me to get a really solid grip on the rodents. This one's got some miles on it. It's not focusing on it naturally. Anyways, I use a 2-foot long hemostat. That makes it even, well, as unlikely as possible that the snake or the boa, when I'm feeding them, nails me instead of the rat, because my rats are not warm, because I don't have fresh killed rats, because I don't raise rats anymore. So they're all frozen thawed. I thaw them on the floor, and the floor is probably 78 degrees or so this time of year. So it's cooling off, because it's not the heat of the summer anymore, when it might be 80 or 82 on the floor. So it's cooling off a little bit, but room temperature is fine. The boas pretty much respond based upon the movement and the smell. Right now, everyone in the basement knows it's dinner time, because it smells like a Borgeshmorg. There's a lot of rats out for the puppies to eat today. So I need to get my flashlight, so hang on a second. Follow me. So here's the old flashlight. I like these headlamp flashlights. I'll show you this. This is an important tool I use every day of my boa breeding life. I don't use it as a headlamp because it makes my head sweat. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable, and I have to move my head around more than I want to, because it never seems to be in exactly the right spot. But I use it like this. I open it up, and then I put this part right here in my teeth. So now it just feels more natural for me. And I actually talk on the phone. I sound semi-intelligent, or understandable, let's say. Even if I don't sound intelligent, at least you can generally understand what I'm saying. So I use this because I need to know where the female is as I'm handing her the rat. So I got no script today, no notes. I'm just kind of winging it. And we'll show you what I do. Sometimes the female is sitting in a position where I can see her easily, and I know where her head is. So I want to get the rat somewhere near the head of the boa, so that the boa nails it, and I'm not wandering around with the hemostat not knowing where the boa is, because I could get my hand nailed. And it's been years since this has happened, but it has happened, and it's no good. It's no fun for me or the animal. So I'll use the flashlight when I need it. Right now, it looks like everybody in this stack is just sitting there waiting for me to hand them a rat. So I get a hold of the rat like this. So I like to get a hold of them on the neck so that I can point the head at the head of the snake. I would prefer them to get a hold of the rat at the head, because then they just commence swallowing it by the head. So I unlatch the door. This is a Super Key West. This one's about 8 years old. She's about 6.5 feet. She is looking. I back up because I don't want to get nailed on the head either. You can probably see this. Here it is. Ah! Sometimes some boas I know are reluctant, and they want to make sure that it's alive, so I'll jiggle it. This one isn't one of them. But so that's one. Here's the next one. This is a much, much smaller animal. But she needs to do a little more growing. So at any time of day you want to do this. So I almost said it at any rate. I caught myself. So typically almost all year round, I'm feeding about every 3 weeks. So about the last 2 months before I'm actually putting males in with females, I'll feed about every 2 weeks. Sometimes a little bit longer. Depends on how many females bred that year. If most of my females I attempted to breed them. I got quite a few of them gravid, whether they produce babies or just slugs. It's taken a lot out of them, so there'll be a lot of females that have a need for some more weight. And I have to do this kind of on a herd basis. So I'm approaching. I have a policy or a way of doing this that's best for the herd, because you can't do it individually when you've got over 100 adult female boas. You could, but I choose not to because it's just a lot more work. And I have to be thinking about efficiency, so I have to keep moving. I've got a lot of babies to feed, babies to post for sale, and animals, adults to take care of, and I'm pretty much doing a lot of this stuff by myself. So I have help with cleaning boas, or cleaning babies in particular, but I have to stay after it. So I do it kind of on a herd method. So if I have a lot of females that need weight, then that year, throughout the summer, I might be feeding about every 2 weeks, maybe every 10 days. In the old days, when I didn't know any better, I would feed boas as many rats as they would eat. I had 8-foot females that I would feed 5, 6 jumbo rats at one sitting. And I have found that, my opinion, I haven't done a scientific study of this, but my opinion is, if you feed them a really big meal, they don't get any more out of it than they would if you just gave them 2, for instance. I mean, they're obviously going to get more out of 2 or 5 than they would from 1. But I think there's a limit to how much muscle building and fat accumulating that they can do in a given period of time. They have a very slow metabolism. So if you give them 5 or 6 rats, I think a lot of those nutrients are just pooped out. And that's money being pooped out. Plus, you're putting the animal through a lot more stress, making them distend that much with that large of a meal. So I'm a believer in relatively small meals. So virtually, well, let's say 80% of my females will only get 1 rat. So depending on the size of the female, it might be a smallish, large rat. It might be a gigantic jumbo rat. Depends on the female. But like this female I just gave a rat to, she's only about 4.5 feet. So I gave her a large rat. She only weighs, I don't know, 3.5 pounds maybe. and I'll have a boa that weighs 30 pounds and she'll get 2 rats. Well, obviously, the baby or the little one is getting proportionally a much, much larger meal than the big girl. But she'll benefit from that and she'll metabolize that and she's going to grow. The big 30 pounder, I don't need her to grow. I need to maintain her. I need to keep her healthy. I need to get her to put on a little more weight, presuming I bred her the year before, or she either had babies or had slugs. Either way, she's going to lose a lot of weight. So I've got to get some food into her. But if I give her 4 or 5 rats, she's just going to poop most of that out. It would be different if I fed her every 10 days. But because I'm doing this herd method, where I kind of have to treat everybody, feeding everybody on the same cycle, I can't really do that. And so I don't, and it works well. If that 30 pounder had babies last year, she very unlikely is going to have the weight on and ready to breed next year anyways. So I'm not going to push it because longevity-wise, it's better for her to be fed on a little bit of a backed-off basis rather than pounding her, because I just think it's unnatural to be pounding them. So coming up to breeding season, typically about every 2 weeks I'll be feeding. No bigger meals, except for select females that maybe didn't have quite enough weight on them and I want to get a little more weight on them and I really want to breed them that year. But for most females, especially the ones I'm not breeding, this year I'll probably have 40 females that I don't put a male in with because they're just not ready. They haven't regained their weight, or maybe they're struggling. They're only eating every other meal for some reason, and I'm waiting for them to snap out of that before I attempt a breeding. Make sure that they're doing well, or as well as I can get them to do. So I'll feed about every 2 weeks the last couple of months, and then I make sure everything is clean. Just universally, everything is really clean. Everything has got fresh water. Then I start to introduce males. And for me, I talked about this before. It takes me over a week. I've spent a week and a half so far deciding which males to put in with which females. I have more to do than just introduce males. I have a lot of work I have to do. So it's kind of a process. So I get the males in with the females. I've been at it for a week and a half. I still have about 12 females I haven't put a male in with, and I have 20 males to decide which males I want to put in with those females. I have to prioritize and figure out which one makes the most sense from a number of perspectives. What do I want to make that I'm going to keep for myself for future breeding? What am I going to make that I think people will want, people will like, people will want to buy, because we are paying bills. We're paying an enormous rodent bill and just, making a living. So it's a lot of things to consider. So I put all the males in. It takes me, like I said, about a week and a half so far. And yesterday I nearly completed all of my feeding, or all of my cleaning of all the big cages. I get them really clean. And I took all the males out. So this is how I do it every year. I talked about before how males typically are not trying to breed right away. For like the first 3 weeks, few of them will try to breed. And I think as of now, I've had probably 8 of them, 8 males that I've seen courting, which is kind of typical. Well, I put in about 75 males or so far. And I've had probably 8 or 10 that I've seen courting. So most of them have not been courting. They haven't been interested in doing anything yet. And this is the cycle on how it works. So I got everything clean. I got all the water bowls dumped. I'm going to fill the water bowls tomorrow as I'm putting the males back in. But today I'm feeding. So I'm giving everybody a rat. Everybody gets 1 rat. Except for the select ones that I want to give 2 rats to. There are quite a few of them actually getting 2 rats today, because the large rats I bought were actually large and not jumbo. I prefer jumbo, but I got a bunch of larges at a good price. So I'm feeding 2 to a lot of these boas. But most of them, I don't know, half of them are getting 1 and the other half are getting 2 because they're not gigantic rats. They're not big jumbo rats. They're just large. Large is about 8 ounces, about an 8-ounce rat, which is about a 220-gram rat, depending on which measuring scale you're on. So I run around and do that, and then through the breeding season, every 3 weeks I feed again. So I'm feeding today, and then in about 3 weeks I'm going to feed again. So before I feed, I've got to get all those males out. I'll show you how I get the males out in another video. But I get all those males out, and I put them in their drawers, their respective drawers underneath the cages, which is handy for me. And then the following day is when I feed. And then through the breeding season, I feed every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks. Sound like Kamala Harris. Every 3 weeks. So I feed every 3 weeks. At any rate, now I feel like I've given myself license to repeat myself. Anyways, I feed every 3 weeks, and I'm not giving anybody a big meal. So the ones that I would give 2 rats to, I pretty much only give them 1 rat. And I'm watching them as I'm checking boas through the breeding season. I'm checking them 3 times at least a day. And I'm watching to see how much they swell up. So I'll go into more of that in a future video, what I'm looking for. But I feed everybody, males included, every 3 weeks. So the reason why I feed males, they're not getting a big meal. Most of my adult males at 4 feet are going to get a mouse. That's a really small meal. Nobody's growing on a mouse. But they're not forgetting how yummy it is to eat. And if you're breeding boas, if you've bred any number of them, and you've gone an extended period of time without feeding them, you realize that male boas oftentimes forget what it is to eat. And that's not what you want. So when you come to the end of breeding season, this is the way I used to do it. I'd come to the end of breeding season, say I was trying to breed 30 males, I'd have 6 of them that wouldn't eat, approximately. Well, that's concerning. You don't want 6 males to not eat. Now, over the next month and a half, 3 or 4 of them would start eating again. But invariably, a couple of them would never eat again. And I don't like that. I don't like that. So, obviously, that's bad. But that happens much, much more rarely. That seems like that might be redundant. But at any rate, well, that happens that's pretty rare, that a male will not eat if you're feeding him every 3 weeks. And then if I'm going through the breeding season and a male will not eat, then I have to decide, am I going to put him back in with a female, or am I going to move him into the baby room where I can get him to eat? I can give him more attention, because I feeding the babies a lot more than every 3 weeks, like every week or 10 days. Or do I risk it and put him back in with the female? So it sort of depends on the male, how robust he is, how likely I think it is that he will start to feed again. So sometimes I'll leave him in, but oftentimes I just don't put him back, because I need him to eat, I need him to survive, and I need to not gamble with that animal. Even though I probably got an 85-90% chance of getting him to eat again, even if he refuses for months, there's still that chance that he won't. So typically I don't feed them, or I don't put them back in with the female. I'll put somebody else in, or I'll give up on breeding that female. So today I'm going to feed a whole bunch of boas and babble away as I'm doing it. And I'm also going to show a different method for cleaning that I started about 2 years ago, which I'd never done before. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. I'm living proof. So and that is feeding and cleaning and dumping water bowls at the same time. Sounds crazy, right? I thought it was too, and I thought, well, I'll try it. As a rule, I don't always do it, because for me to do all of my females that way, it's like a 10-hour day. You know, I'm talking spot cleaning. So I'm not talking about doing complete change outs, or when they're dirtier, like toward the end of the breeding season, they're a lot dirtier, because I kind of avoid a lot of the cleaning. I try not to do anything too upsetting to the females and just hit the high spots. But if I'm just doing spot cleaning and I've done a real thorough cleaning before, 3 weeks before, and I know I'm not going to have to do a half cage clean out, then I'll clean and feed and change water or dump water at the same time. And I'll show you how I do that. And I saved a couple of stacks yesterday as I was cleaning and removing males. So I already took the males out because I can't have males in while I've got rats in the room. I can't risk an accidental nabbing of the housemate because they see movement and smell rat. So I'll show you how I do that, and we'll intersperse that, or maybe I'll do that up front, because this watching me feed this aisle and time lapse is going to be a little more boring. At least I think it is. So I'll continue now, and I'm going to just pick up rats and hand them to them, and I'll talk intermittently if I think something is mildly entertaining or might be interesting. It's to me, if not to you. So we'll see. So next. So I'm going to unlatch the door on the opposite side of where the female is sitting. So I have two latches. That's why I like these wide doors that cover the whole front of the cage, is I have full access to the whole cage all the way across. And if the female is at this end, I unlatch this door, this side first, and this one second, and this is what I open the door by, because the female is over there. Or vice versa. If she's right in the middle, then I've got to be really careful, because I don't want her to accidentally strike out at me, for obvious reasons. I do like to jiggle a rat, just so they think it's alive. If they think it's alive, they're more likely to hang on to it. Keep squeezing. This goes pretty fast. Won't take me long to feed this whole aisle. And I always feed females first, just the way I do it. For those of you who are going to correct me and tell me how you do it a different way, this isn't the right way to do it, just the way I do it. There is no right way. You can do it in any order you want. How's that? Feel free to feed your boas in any order you want to, because this isn't the only way you can do it. This is just the way I do it. That's it. Be kind of cool if a boa jumped out and grabbed onto my hand for the video, wouldn't it? Maybe not. Wait a second. How about a little music, huh? All right. Da 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 da. I know. I know it's no good. And I tend to, sometimes they'll grab out of the rat and they kind of pull it back under the aspen. I do not like that. So I definitely get a hold of the rat and lift them and shake them, get the aspen off if possible, get as much of it off as is possible. But let me tell you a couple interesting things. Sometimes you want the boa to grab the rat, right? And not the aspen. Because aspen's no good, right? So I had one time, this is probably 25 years ago, and I had about an 8-foot boa, a really nice pastel boa. I remember exactly where the cage was, the day that it happened. This was at the end of the day, I was almost done, second to the last aisle, and I went to hand her the rat, and she missed the rat, and like a shovel, she went right through the aspen and had her mouth, agape like that, packed full of aspen. So I thought, you got to be kidding me. Give me a break. So I got a hold of her behind the head. She was unhappy, to say the least. And I took a hemostat and I started to pick out the aspen. She started going berserk, trying to wrap my arm. She just got really, really upset. She didn't know that I was trying to help her. So eventually I just got frustrated and I, got her unwrapped from my arm because I couldn't be getting the aspen out and hold on to her and just do all the things I needed to do to take care of that all at one time. So I just put her back in the cage. And I thought, well, forget it. I'll try it in the morning. She'll probably be calmed down a little bit and frustrated, maybe be happy that I'm cleaning it out. Fast forward 12 hours or so, 10 hours, when I got up in the morning and I went and looked at her, what did I find? She's just sitting there. What? Nothing. Nothing in her mouth. Clean. I can't make a reason. I have no explanation how that happened, but it's real. They have some ability to get stuff out of their mouth when they accidentally get it in their mouth when they're eating in the wild, because obviously sometimes they're going to miss a meal and get a mouthful of whatever, debris on the floor of the forest or the jungle, or they're going to nail a tree or a branch, get other crap in their mouth. But somehow, evolution, the miracle of evolution, they're able to take care of it. Shazam. So it didn't. Good thing I don't do any drinking games. Oh boy. All right, next. This is a new boa that I just got. I'm not going to take it out because she's obviously going to get a rat, but this is Candy. So I just got this from Edward Whitfield this week, and his daughter really loved this boa, and she called it Candy. So this is the only boa in the house with a name. Hat tip to Edward Whitfield and his daughter, his cute, adorable daughter. This is Candy, and she is double het, blood call, and maybe this year I'll make my first labbies, or let's see, call Sunglow labbies, call Sunglow blood labbies. I'll get it right, using Candy from Edward Whitfield. Thanks, Edward. So that's that stack. That's that stack. And we'll keep going. So one of the breedings I'm doing this year This is one of the females. Those of you who have been watching me for a long time know of the male that I called the Bandit. So it's a male, it was a male Colombian that I got about 6 years ago with a black band all the way around his body. I mean black, inky black. And I bred him to a motley jungle, produced a litter of babies, and I've been raising those babies. They're at least 6, maybe 7 years old, and this year is the first year I'm trying to breed them to determine if there was a simple recessive trait. I already know it's not incomplete dominant because I didn't get any on the first breeding and I had a good litter. There were, I had like 22 babies and only 3 females. Go figure. So I kept all 3 females and I kept enough males to breed those females. So this year I'm breeding them back to each other, which is the only way you can do it. You got to shortcut and do inbreeding on, potential simple recessive like this. And I'll see if that proves out. If that proves out, that's going to be huge. Huge. But I just fed one of those females. And once in a while, you get a female that won't eat. It's pretty unusual. So when a female won't eat, during breeding season, there's one of 2 reasons why she won't eat. One could be because she's sick, and that's not what you want. But the more common reason for a female that won't eat during breeding season is she's thickening with egg follicles and she's just not hungry. She just wants to reproduce. She's in the middle of a reproductive cycle and she doesn't want to eat. Now, most females will eat even through that. I would say 90% of them will, but that shifts like the last week. Right before ovulation, you get about 90% of them that won't eat if they're just about to ovulate. So not eating is a good sign, something I look forward to, because usually it's I'm not even trying to breed animals that I know are not doing really well. So there's a little nugget for you. Sometimes I don't even open the door very far. It's not necessary to get the door all the way open, but usually I do. No right way, no wrong way. Couple of IMG het VPIs. And this is another one of those, a jungle Haas het bandit. Probably not going to be genetic. In nature, it's, what's it called? It's called, it'll come to me. Where you get black spots. It's common in nature. And it's never been proven to be genetic in anything. So if it does prove to be genetic, it would be surprising. But a huge delight for me if it did prove to be genetic. How am I doing? Am I doing it the wrong way, anyone? Jump in. Jump in, straighten me out. So that's not quite the whole row. I need to grab a few more rats. That gives you a little bit of a rundown of kind of what I do when I'm feeding, and feed all these females and all the males in the whole basement. It's only going to take me probably 3 hours. It's not that long. But everybody's glad to get a meal. And then I leave them alone till the next day and give them water and put the male in. So the smell of getting fresh water is definitely not food. So that kind of disrupts their animalistic, instinctive reaction to be thinking it's time to get something to eat, something I want to avoid, when I'm putting the male in. I don't want the female to be on the prowl for a meal when the male goes in. So for safety's sake, it's one of the things I do. Of course, I still go through my process of touching the female with a snake hook or with a styrofoam stick. I haven't talked about a styrofoam stick for video in years, but I use a styrofoam stick a lot as well because that won't hurt them. Doesn't hurt them if they bite it. Doesn't hurt me if they bite the styrofoam stick. At any rate, I did it full on. I give up. All right. Till next time, have a good one. Okay, this is an easy one. So this female's cage is virtually clean. I just need to change her water, so I'm just going to hand her a rat. Have my flashlight in my teeth. Make sure that she is preoccupied with the rat so I can get the water bowl out. So I'll come from this side, away from the water bowl, get her to grab the rat. Oh, there's a little bit right there. Grab the water bowl. Never stick your finger in the water bowl because you're going to cross-contaminate. Dump it. Put the water bowl back. And there's a little spot right there to clean. So typically I would grab her and move her away from the poop. In this case, just a little bit of urates. Grab that. Push that over. And then toss it. So see if we can find one here that's going to be a little bit more challenging that I can show you. Here's her sister. Now this one, she is right in the middle with her head. Her back end is over here on this left side. And I've already scoped it out, and there's a turd back there in that back corner that I want to get out. So what I'll do is I'll hand her the rat. Using the rat and the hemostat, I'll move her over here. Then I can reach back there and grab the turd. And change her water bowl. So I want her to come over here. Now I keep jiggling this end. She's going to kill it. I'm going to make sure that it's dead. And I drop her over here. Now I can get the water bowl. I never quit watching the female. Dump the water bowl. Because this is well, I don't want to say dangerous, but this is a vulnerable time when she is on the prowl, she is on the hunt, she's meaning to kill a meal and eat it. I don't want her to grab my hand by mistake. So I keep an eye on where she is, and I reach back here for that one turd that she dropped in the corner. Toss that turd. If you use plenty of aspen, you can just pretty much just push in some more aspen back into that corner because you want to keep the corners covered because they typically will poop either in a corner along a wall or next to the water bowl. they really like to poop next to the water bowl. So that's that one. And we're ready to try another. Okay, this one, she's assumed kind of a very common position that is right around the water bowl, which they do a lot. So I am really careful when I hand them the rat to make sure they don't drag it into the water bowl, because that's just a recipe for a mess. Because if they drag it into the water bowl, invariably they're coming out with the rat, they're going to get aspen all over the rat. I don't think it hurts them to eat some aspen, but I don't want them to eat any more aspen than is absolutely necessary. So I make sure that they don't drag it into the water. And then there's a dirty corner back here. There's a turd next to the water bowl. So I'm going to hand her the rat, and I'm going to try to keep her right here in this front corner because it's the cleanest spot. Hey. A little bit reluctant. That's a good sign that she might be cycling. She also looks like she's a little bit opaque. So I don't agonize about getting every turd out. I do agonize about the water. So she's very, very reluctant to grab the meal. That's because she's going through a cycle. So in this case, without taking my eyes off of her, I'm going to get her water bowl out and dump it. Water is really important. And I'd say a little over half of the time when they're reluctant like this, you leave the rat in, they'll come and get it at their leisure. So she's just not ready to grab it right now. She doesn't feel real aggressive, probably because she's cycling. But she probably will eat. So I leave the rat in. There's a turd right there. I don't agonize over getting every single bit of poop out of there, especially during breeding, because I know that the next time I come in, I can get it. So if it overall is pretty clean, that's the main thing. I got some poop back here. Some urates here. I'm watching her. I've been doing it a long time, so I know body language. And she is definitely not in the mode where she is ready to pounce, ready to grab something to eat. So I know that, so I feel fairly safe and assured that nothing's going to happen. Here's another one, going to be a little more challenging. She's got a bunch of poop around her bowl, some in the corner. We'll see how much of that I can get out. Might help if I bring the camera up where you can see. There's a fire labby, my oldest one and my biggest one. This one's about 10 years old. She's head for nothing. And I'm trying to breed a call Sunglow blood to her. Hopefully that happens. It'll make us some cool, let's see, hypo, labby, double het, call, bloods, and fire. So those will be some fun combos. I'm going to grab a rat for her. In this instance, there's some poop back there. There's a turd back there, so I'm going to try and drop her right here in this front corner, which is the cleanest spot. And maybe I can get that one. Maybe I can't. If I can't, it's not the end of the world. But we'll see what I can do. There you go, Mama. She missed. All right, she's got it. Sometimes I grab the boa. Generally, I try not to because they know they're being messed with. They're a little sensitive to any kind of activity that's going on in the cage right now. They are vulnerable. In the wild, they'd be very vulnerable to attack if they're in the middle of being preoccupied, having wrapped themselves around a meal. And this girl has pooped in her water. That's yucky. So she is getting a new water bowl. And I may have to give her some more. Maybe not. But I might have to give her some more Aspen. I'm still watching her out of the corner of my eye. I have eyes in the back of my head. So I'm watching what she's doing. She's not moving. And I cannot really get a hold of that turd in the back end. If I reached back there, her body here, she would feel the heat from the under part of my arm, and she would push me up against the shelf. It's an uncomfortable position for both of us. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to get her, get that turd that's in the corner the next time. I'm going to get her a clean water bowl. A brand new water bowl, I should say. I like to keep some of my supplies a little ways away from where I'm working because it gives me more steps. Good for my heart. Good for my legs. Little exercise isn't going to kill anybody. Actually, it's going to do the opposite, which I'm obviously working at, or should be obvious, hopefully. So that's that one. Let's see what we can figure out next. All right, here's the next one. This is a labyrinth female, big one. Yeah, it looks like she just got a little spot right here, a little turd behind the water bowl. So it's pretty clean over here. So I'm going to hand her the rat and drag her into this corner. Make sure she stays over here. There she goes. And I got a spot right here. Helps to have big hands. And I scoop it right down to the plastic because the urates tend to soak down into the aspen. Cover it back up. Grab the water. I just put my finger on the edge, not in the water. Dump it. Put it back in. Push it down. A little bit. Good to go. Try to keep the cups in there pretty level because I'm going to fill them up with water. Come down a level. All right, this is a big Key West Hypo Labby. She's never bred. Like 8 years old. Been trying to breed her. Just hasn't happened. She's got a good turd in the back there. So the shelf scenario is very common with these cages with the shelves. The females like to spend time on the shelf. They rarely poop down below. So there's a poop in this corner right here. And then there's a poop back in the corner back there that I'm going to get and change her water bowl. So what do I do? Where am I going to put her? Any ideas? I'm going to put her right up on the shelf. So I'm going to hand her the rat. I'm going to push her back so she goes up on the shelf. Then I have free reign to do what I want to do about down below. Grab a rat. Open the door. And I'm ready as soon as she grabs it to scoot her back. See that? You'd almost think I'd done it before, wouldn't you? Dump the water. This back corner is kind of dirty, so I'm going to scoop out a little bit. So in this case, I pull the aspen forward so I can get down to the plastic. So a little trick. If you're using a shovel or a scoop of some sort, I wouldn't dig into the aspen with the shovel. I'd get the aspen out of the way so you're down to the plastic. Now you can scoop all the way down to the bottom, all the way down to the back. Otherwise, you're just trying to dig into the aspen. It's not near as effective. Now that's quite a bit of aspen I took out of there. So I'm going to grab her some more aspen. I like to put the water bowl under the shelf. That way, if they knock any aspen off the shelf, it doesn't end up in the water bowl. Otherwise, it'd be raining into the water bowl, which just fouls it, and I have to change the cup and everything, which I don't want to do any more than I have to. So here's this corner here. Grab a scoop. Good thing about the aspen is it sucks the moisture out of the poop pretty quickly. If the poop is only hours old, it's still going to be moist. Sometimes I'll use a paper towel to grab it then, so I don't get it on my hands. But normally it's after a day or so, it's going to be pretty dry. So I can just grab it and get it out of there. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how I do this. I think it'd be overkill maybe to do a whole bunch more. I do have the rest of these 2 stacks to do. So another 6 cages. So I'm going to do those as well and then continue feeding. I hope you enjoy watching this. I enjoy talking to myself while I'm doing it. So have a good one.